Hello computer scientists and cybersecurity professionals. We're working in our Cisco Network Academy Lab 2234 and we're working on configuring our initial switch settings. This is going to be kind of a two-part video. The first one is I'm going to show what we did to configure switch 1 because we've already done that. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what we have done. I will then demonstrate how to do those on switch 2. I have my notes here. I also have an application called KeyPass that stores all our passwords, so we have no idea really what those passwords are, but we can store those there and access those when we need to. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and click on my switch 1, and I'm going to click on CLI if it was not already there, and I'm going to press my enter key to get started. And you can see that I have a MOTD, also known as a message of the day. And it starts right here, and it says, this is a secure system, authorized access only. You'll be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And then I put my name here as the administrator. All right. And now I need to go ahead and get into my console line. And so we secured that with a password. That's where KeyPass comes into play. So I have my console line password. I'm going to go ahead and double click on that. You can see a green thing at the bottom of the page kind of going down. I only get a few seconds while it's on the clipboard. And I'm going to go ahead and press my right arrow or my right click on my mouse and paste it. You don't see the password, but it is there. I'm going to press enter. I am now in the console line here for the exec mode. I'm going to go ahead and get into the privileged exec mode by doing EN for enable and pressing enter. And now I have a password for the privileged exec mode as well. I'm going to double click on those asterisks there in my KeyPass. I'm going to come here, right click and paste that as well and press my enter key. And now that you see that S1 hashtag, I am in the privileged exec mode. So one of the first things I did was I wanted to make sure that the clock was set. All right, it's very important to have your clocks all on the same time. So I'm going to just double check that by choosing show clock, looking at my notes here. All right, and I have it 7:47 on Tuesday, November 2nd, 2022. We set this clock yesterday at that time. All right. So if I needed to update that one, I will demonstrate that on switch 2. All right. So we also then changed a few, as you saw, passwords and stuff. So I'm going to do show running tech configuration or config. And I'm going to press my enter key. Now this is actually showing us in the switch settings that we have a password here and it's encrypted. And here is my console line password that is all jumbled up. It is not in plain text. That is what is very important. I'm going to press my space bar, and you can see all my Ethernet ports. Eventually, when we have things plugged into our Ethernet ports, we'll see traffic going by them, but we don't. We're just setting up our initial configurations. Here is my message of the day. And here is my privileged exec password right there to get logged into. And that is what we set up on our switch. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate how we did that on switch 2. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And I'm going to go ahead and click on my switch 2. And I'm going to jump into the command line interface. And I'm going to press my enter key to get started. There we go. And you can see that it is called switch. We didn't even rename it yet, and we will do so shortly. But the first thing again that I want to do is set the clock. So I need to go ahead and be in privileged exec mode. So I'm going to go ahead and enable by EN, or you can type in enable, and I can see the switch hashtag there. And now I'm going to type in clock set, again, according to my notes. And I'm going to first start with the hour. It is 7:11:00. All right, and then it asks for the day. So it is the 3rd day of November. So I'm going to type in NOV for November and the year 2021. I'm going to go ahead and press my enter key. And now I'm going to go ahead and do a show clock so I can see that that was set. And let me move my mouse. It's right where I'm at. And sorry, I wish I could make my command line interface a little bigger, but I cannot. And there is my clock right there. It is set. All right. So I'm going to actually try to see if I can get it a little bigger. And man, I just can't seem to make that bigger so we can see it. So, all right. So the next thing that we actually did is we went and we named the switch. All right. Instead of calling it switch 1, we gave it a name, because if your switch is on the second floor, maybe it's in closet 2400 or something like that, you're going to want to know where that switch is in your topology. So we are in config mode. I'm looking at my notes here, so I don't need to enable. I do need to go to our config terminal, though, so I need to do a config. And you could type in terminal if you want to, or config T for terminal. And did I misdo this? Let's try this one more time. Config spacebar T. And now I'm in my config mode. And I need to now choose host name, spacebar, and this is the name of my switch. And I'm just going to put capital S2 for our switch 2 and press my enter key, and you can see now that the switch is switch 2. That is the name of it. All right. So continuing on with what we are doing, I'm going to go ahead and do a running configuration here and kind of see what my switch settings are at the beginning. So I'll do my running config, and I press my enter key, and I have an invalid input again. Let me try that one more time. Show spacebar running tac config, and I continue to have a problem here. Let me go and see where that problem may be. And oh, it's because I am in my configure mode. Apologies. I need to exit out of that. So I'm going to type in exit and enter, and now I'm in my privileged exec mode, and now I can do a show running config T, or running config, I should say. And now I can see that I have no password. It's not encrypted. I did change the host name to S2, so that's good. There's all my Ethernet ports, but I do not have any line console password at all. They're not encrypted or anything, so we need to work on that. I do not have a message of the day or anything. So we've already named it, and so we need to secure access to our console line. So I'm going to go to my notes. Here's my console line right here, and so we need to get into our config mode. So I'm going to go ahead and type in or press my up arrow till I get to config T, and now I'm in my config mode. And now I need to choose what line I want, line console. And we're going to choose 0. Press our enter key there. And now we are going to, you can see that, well, we're going to go ahead. You can see that we're in our config line now, right there. I need to go ahead and type in password, spacebar, and this is where I need a password. But I want my KeyPass software to do that for us. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on my lab 2234 and add an entry. This is my switch 2 now, and this is the console line password. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and choose OK, and it creates a pretty secure password. So I'm going to go ahead and double click that password. And again, I only have so many seconds to paste that in. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, right click and choose paste. I can see the password in plain text. We'll get that out in a second. And now I have a password. All right. So when I am done with that, I now want to make sure that it is when I log in. So I want to type in login there. So when I log in, it's going to ask me for the password. And I'm going to exit the config mode. All right, and press my enter key, and I'm back to my switch to privileged exec. I'm going to go ahead and choose my up arrow to get to show running config, and now I have my host name again. I'm going to press my space bar, and you can see that I have my password for my line console 0. There's my password right there, and it's going to ask me for that during my login. All right. How does that work? Well, let me demonstrate. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of the console and press enter to get back in, and you can see that it is asking me for my password. I'm going to go ahead and go over to my KeyPass, double click on the asterisk, right click in the command line interface, press enter, and now I'm in my switch. I do want to enable to get into the privileged exec mode, and you can see that by the hashtag, and I could get in that without a password. All right, but I want to make sure that my password for my console line is encrypted. So I'm looking at my notes, and I want to do this right here. So I'm in my privileged exec. I'm going to do a config T to get into the configuration mode, and I'm going to type in service password TAC encryption and enter. And I'm going to go ahead and exit this and exit. And you know what? I want to be in my privileged exec. I want to show you that if I do my show running config, that when I press my space bar, my password now is not in plain text. It is encrypted. Very important. All right. So now we are going to move on to securing our privileged exec mode with a password and making it secure. So I'm going to go to my notes, privileged exec mode, and here I am. So I'm going to go ahead and do my config T because I'm already in my privileged exec mode, and I'm in my config mode, and I'm going to go ahead and type in enable secret according to my notes. And I'm going to go ahead and, oh, you know what? My notes, because this went on a different line because I can't see everything there. So let me go ahead and redo that. It was an incomplete command. I'm going to go ahead and do my up arrow. And now with the space bar, it's asking me for my password. I'm going to come over to KeyPass now and make a secure password by right-clicking, add entry. And we'll type in switch to privileged exec mode. All right, and I'll click OK. And I'll double click the password it gives me. And I'll go ahead and right click that right here and paste that in. And now I'll press my enter key. And I'm going to go ahead and type in my exit to exit out of config mode. And I'm going to want to show my running configuration so I can see now that this is my privileged exec password and it is encrypted. All right, so we cannot see it in plain text. I'm going to go ahead and get out of this. I'm going to go ahead and see if that worked by exiting out of the switch terminal. Press enter to get back into it. It is asking me for my password for the console line. I'll double click that, right click and paste it. I now want to enable to get into my privileged exec, and again you can see now it's asking me for a password. We are securing our switch, very important, and now I am in my privileged exec mode. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is, excuse me, is I believe we want to configure a message of the day. So I'm going to jump over to my notes, MOTD, the message of the day banner, and I'll go ahead and close that so I can see all my information here. I'm in my privileged exec, so I want to do my config T, and I am going to type in banner, MOTD, spacebar, and in a string structure, I would type in what users would see when they get into my my terminal or my switch. And so I will say this is a secure switch. unauthorized users will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And I will sign this, Mr. Lang. And in my quote there, you want to make sure you end your string. All right, I'm going to go ahead and press my Enter key. I'll exit out of config mode. And now I'm going to exit again to see what it may look like when I get into it. And there is my message of the day. This is a secure switch. Unauthorized users will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, Mr. Lang. So I need my password to get into the console line. And that's as easy as going to my key pass and pasting that in. I now want to get into my privileged exec mode. So I'll do that for switch 2. Double click there and paste that and enter. And I'm going to do a show running config. Oh, you know what? I forgot my tack between the two. There we go. And so again, I see my encrypted password for my privileged exec. As I press my space bar on my keyboard, I have my banner and message of the day there. And I also have my console line password encrypted there. So again, we are really doing well configuring and securing our switch. I believe the last thing we want to do is we want to save this file to our RAM. So that way, if something happens, we will have access to the file to where we can just simply load that file up and our system will have this information already programmed into it. So I'm going to jump over to my notes. And I got my NVRAM. Sorry about that loud bell. And I'll go ahead and close this so that way I can get my information in here correctly. And I'm going to, in my privileged exec mode, I'm going to choose copy or type copy, running, tack, config. Oh, and then I need, my bad, startup. I thought I didn't have everything there after looking back at my notes. Startup, config. All right, so again, just double checking my notes, copy running config, startup config, looking at my command line interface, copy running, tack config, and startup config. I'm going to go ahead and press my enter key. It's going to say, where do you want that destination file to be? Startup config is fine. I'll press enter again. Building configuration, and it built it just fine, and I am back into my privileged exec mode. So that is what we have done to secure our switch. We gave it some great passwords. We gave it a message of the day, and we also encrypted those passwords so that they're not viewed in plain text. So, all right, that's our first journey to secure switches on our network. Thank you very much for your attention and listening. Have a great day, computer scientists.